Patrol missions are repeatable missions set throughout Star Trek Online that could be considered the norm for Starfleet ships. When not out getting embroiled in Cardassian power struggles, engaging in combat along the Klingon front, or dealing with the Romulan plight, most of the time is dedicated to the more mundane guard duty. Today, still based on Deep Space Nine, the USS Dunkirk is assigned to patrol the nearby Chapel system. The system is notable for a nebula known as the Cathedral Plume. The Bajoran faith teaches that it is to be the site of a sign from the prophets. Well, nothing remarkable about this system except an elevated level of verterons, which if you've seen the video on the wormhole, then you may see the link. Perhaps there's more to this formation than meets the eye. Questions for another time though, as today we're here to investigate some wreckage that was detected from a distance, but unable to be identified. Wary of a true-way ambush, we've set a course to investigate. We can clearly see the debris that we were briefed on as we warp in. Amid the crimson and brass of the nebula, we find a trail of scattered hulks. Setting a course for the nearest cluster, we can see grey metals, shards of twisted ships, and in some places, pale green hues of failing power. A thorough scan brings with it an ominous revelation. It is Borg. How did it get here? There's enough mass to suggest the remains of a Borg cube, but we're deep in the Alpha Quadrant. A cube passing undetected through this much space would likely have been seen. As a temporal agent, Captain Hale has never encountered the Borg. Officers who selected the 25th century Starfleet captain background would have a different tale, however. So let's familiarise ourselves with the Borg's history after the return of the USS Voyager. Well, Starfleet was first made aware of the Borg when in 2364 numerous outposts on the edge of Federation space vanished. Further investigation by the USS Enterprise and the involvement of the entity known as Q led to Starfleet making a first contact with the hostile collective in 2365. The technological powerhouse of a species assimilates others into its structure en masse, hollowing out individuals into husks and filling them with the voice of the collective. In 2366, Captain Jean-Luc Picard was assimilated and transformed into the drone Locutus. His captain's knowledge of Starfleet operations were used against the Federation, and in 2366 the Borg passed through the Wolf 359 sector on their way to Earth, destroying the defending fleet. Just as the Borg exploited a weakness of Starfleet operations, the Enterprise was able to leverage a weakness of the Collective and force them into a standby state, allowing them to be destroyed. In 2373, an assault on Sector 001 was thwarted with the destruction of a second Borg cube and the prevention of an attempted temporal interference from the Borg trying to prevent Earth's first contact. In 2378, the USS Voyager took a shortcut back to the Alpha Quadrant by using the Borg subspace corridors to return quickly to Sol. Before it arrived, the Borg were infected with a neurolytic pathogen which destroyed the Borg's hive mind network, severely damaging the collective. The virus was 26 years ahead of Starfleet's tech, and the Borg failed to adapt quickly enough to counter it. On the return of the Voyager, a great deal of advanced technology was brought to Starfleet that was quickly implemented fleet-wide. Not surprising, as most of this tech was already being studied by Voyager crew or of Starfleet design, just 26 years more advanced. I bet the Temporal Investigations Bureau loved that. In 2381, the Borg returned to attack the Federation. This attack may be a reference to the Star Trek Destiny novels and have taken place in the Azure Nebula, at the mouth of one of the Borg's many FTL corridors. But they were repelled by a Federation fleet. The Destiny novels painted this event as a much larger affair with galaxy-spanning consequences. Unlike the novels, however, in the lore of Star Trek Online, this battle was less of a third war and more of a quick skirmish. In the Star Trek Online timeline, the Borg were likely still recovering from the effects of the neurolytic pathogen and were much less of a threat. The details are sketchy, but what is known is that this proved the continued existence of the Collective. Jean-Luc Picard establishes the Anti-Borg Task Force and appoints Annika Hansen at its head, who joined Starfleet after her experiences in the Collective and on board the USS Voyager. Starfleet braced itself for another assault, but it never came. Silence from the Delta Quadrant. And in 2383, the Federation tentatively declared the Borg threat vanquished. After 3 more years of consuming resources seemingly for nothing, the Anti-Borg Task Force was disbanded, a move that led Hansen to resign from Starfleet and petition the Daystrom Institute to continue its work instead. 2409. The start of Star Trek Online, and some 28 years after the last Borg sighting. As the Klingon Federation War continued, thrown into the fray were the Borg, that, much as before, made a beeline for Federation space, but this time en masse.
Once thought to be an unstoppable force, the Borg were dealt a heavy blow by Catherine Janeway and the crew of the USS Voyager. But the Borg are nothing if not resilient. They retreated, waited, planned, and they adapted. These are not the nightmares of Wolf 359. They are faster, aggressive, relentless, remorseless. What the Borg cannot assimilate, they will destroy.
And destroy they did. These Borg had placed a greater emphasis on the destruction of the Federation, bolstered the level of their augmentation over attempts to assimilate. It seems the blow Janeway dealt them had them reconsider their approach to humanity. They made their way to the Vega colony, a Federation world since its founding. They overran the planet and still hold it almost a year later. They are contained by continued assaults from Starfleet, its allies, the Romulan Republic, and even the KDF understand the threat that they pose, agreeing to prioritise Borg hostilities over that of the Federation. Contained for now in the middle of Federation space by ships acting as antibodies to purge an infection, but unable to drive it out completely. The fact that we find debris so far beyond the Vega system, and recent ones at that, is troubling. Scans complete. We detect the possibility of time travel. Is that how this wreckage ended up here? And if so, who dealt with it? One thing stands out to me, however, the presence of a familiar-looking hollow asteroid. We've seen these before, over the Brea system, and Verterons are produced by subspace Kerr objects such as wormholes. Could an Iconian gate have a similar effect? Could the Iconians be involved somehow? Time travel, Iconian gates. Sounds like a paranoid conspiracy, but after what we've seen, I don't know anymore. Perhaps there's still more to uncover. And I hope you'll join me for the next part as we begin in earnest the Borg Advance storyline in Star Trek Online and continue through its ever-expanding narrative. Until the next part, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye.